No.
Well, we do have these sort of standards, don't we, that are societally set of like adequacy versus inadequacy for certain functions in society, and like madness versus stability, insanity, these sort of constructed binary distinctions that really are just obscuring a wider field of multiplicity and possibility. I'm sure you would agree.
They're obscuring not a sense of the whole, like the totality. Not necessarily obscuring that. I mean, that's inevitable with something as limiting as language, I think. And but what I do think it's doing is, well, again, it's doing exactly what language was designed to do. It's breaking these things down and simplifying them to to such an extent that they become unrecognizable of what they were before. And we lose a kind of we lose a lot of the nuance and the detail that otherwise would have been there, had we not had something so destructive, simplifying, and ignorant as language.
Right. I agree. Yeah, that makes sense. Communication is sort of inherently flawed in that sense.
Yeah, and it always will be. Communication is something that is absolutely imperfect. There's a train passing by. Please wait.
I can't hear it.
Oh, okay. Communication is something that is. Can you hear it now?
Yeah, well, I can only hear it when you
There we
talk.
go. There we go. So you can't hear it now?
No.
Well, like while I was talking. So, anyways, the engine passed. It should be fine now. I completely forget what I was saying. That's going to happen a lot. I have very, very short memory.
I don't
Oh yes,
honestly. Okay, all right.
communication. Communication is like you're saying that it's flawed, and the way the sentence is constructed there implies that it only has a couple of minor flaws. But communication, in and of itself, is flawed entirely because there's no way you'll ever be able to communicate uh, the entirety of a piece of information with language alone, or even with other forms of media. If you have pictures and words but not sound, you're missing an aspect. If you have pictures, word, and sound but not uh, uh, um, perhaps smell or dynamic or any of these things, any aspect that goes missing is crucial for us to grasp and to comprehend what's actually in front of us, what's being presented to us. There's no way to flawlessly communicate.
I think this also has to do with like the interaction between the perception of like someone who's hearing or reading something and the intention or even the style of conveying the thing that the person who is talking or writing is
I don't
using.
even think it's I don't even think it's about method or style. I think it's inherent.
But
I mean,
I
think
think
about a phenomenon like photo compression on computers. Obviously, how it works is to compress the file into a smaller and smaller and smaller file size. You cut out quote unquote extraneous detail, but detail that nonetheless is still important to gathering the whole picture. There comes a point when the picture becomes so obscured by the amount of compression that it's unrecognizable, and that doesn't really start any certain place, but each time it happens, it just grows and grows and grows, and each time you miss more and more important detail.
Right. I see what you're saying. Like, there's always something that is missing from the whole picture that is sort of left out. But I also I think it's both things because you also have like a communication is also like an interaction between a perception and an expression also.
Mm. I would say less a perception and expression, and more perceptor and expressor.
Right.
Because it's kind of I mean, a bit of a misuse of the term, I suppose, but it's kind of objectifying the things when really they could be an object, or whatever we consider a sentient thing to be. I don't know. Seems like a moot point.
I would consider them subjects because that's because all of the interpretation is subjective.
Mm. Yeah, this topic was brought up to me by a friend that I've been talking to for a long time. They're like some kind of, you know, really techie kind of person. I don't really know what they do because I'm not
STEM
very.
Lord.
No, God, no, they hate STEM. Um, but they're pretty tech involved, and I suppose, and that was one of the analogies that they first kind of expressed to me was this idea of photo compression and the imperfection of communication itself, not even via method, but just inherently.
Right, yeah, it's very interesting.
It's saddening, I think, that you can never truly know something or someone.
I don't know, like I think that also depends on how you mean by truly. Because
Hmm.
I do believe in connection. Like I do believe that there can be like this is kind of what I mean when I talk about recognition in love and how like if put under the interpretation, like the force of love and being recognized in that way, I feel like that's how one can be perceived in the way that they are, in a sense. In an ideal
Perceived in the way they
situation.
are. Tell me about that.
Like what you're expressing is the same, it has the same quality as what the other is perceiving. They recognize you for you.
But is that possible in any real, meaningful way?
I believe I've experienced this to as much of the extent that it is linguistically possible.
Mm. How so?
Well, like I've been in love before. Like I don't know how to explain it any better. Like it's kind of on the fly right now.
We'll do it on the fly.
Well, like for example, like it's partly a matter of someone telling you you are something and you being like, yes, I am that thing. Like that on that level of connection.
They're telling you that you are something, not something to them, not something as they perceive, but something. Period.
Well, at the end of the day, I think we could argue that
Are they?
every
Are they?
single time someone
Are they?
says
Are they?
that, it's just a perception, right?
Well, no, it's not just a perception because it's both a perception, and it goes further than that. It's a perception and a prescription. It's
Mm,
both.
right, yeah. Good point. This is very
Do you think it
Derridian.
is more?
Um, well, well, I would also say it's a force of interpretation, if you know what I mean by that. But I don't know if
I
you've
suppose it's a
read.
more clunky way to put it as understanding.
Sure, yeah. It's like finally the force that interprets you understands. Exactly.
Mm. And in terms of understanding, your way of expressing it before was, again, someone prescribing,
But it's
and at
it's
the
almost
same
like a
time,
sense of
more on a
it's almost
on
like
the
a
same
sense of
time,
like, oh
more of like,
shit.
like a surface level kind of thing. Um, they're prescribing, but above that is that they are perceiving, right? Perceiving and prescribing. But which is it more? When you finally understand something, are you projecting understanding onto it, or have you internalized the understanding of the thing?
I think in this situation it would be the latter. Because what I'm about to say is like they're perceiving and prescribing something as it is already.
Is is
Which
that's a prescriptive statement in and of itself.
which if we go into more detail, I guess, and describe it in a more precise way, as it is being expressed and intended, and as it is being experienced by the one that they are perceiving and prescribing to.
Well, then let me throw a Zizek curveball at you. If someone absorbs a different message than is intended, the intent doesn't really matter, does it?
Well, to what extent?
What's that?
I would argue to some extent it remains important.
Intent versus
Yeah.
material outcome?
Yeah.
Mm, I think I think in a sense, yes, it is. It's a factor, but it's not the overpowering one. It's an ingredient in this cocktail here, but it's not. It's a mild flavor underneath. It's subverted by other things, primarily material outcome.
Yeah, and the way that that flow can get redirected by so many different um, mechanisms of social interactions as well.
Hmm. Like for example, let's say you're having a awful, terrible, no good. That's the title, right? Very bad, terrible, no good, rotten. Doesn't fucking matter. Really awful day, and this dude, in some way is somehow, he manages to trip over his shoelaces and punch you in the fucking face. If you've had a terrible day, would it really matter to you if the dude just fucking punched you in the face?
Right, you would be having this explosive
You would be
reaction.
livid. You'd be
Yeah,
livid.
even though he
And
didn't
you
mean
would
to.
probably deck the guy.
Right.
I mean, certain people, I'm not saying this is across the board. People are different because they have different material conditions, of course.
Well, yeah, and I also feel like the sizes of the people would matter in this case. Like if some like huge brawny dude like punched a little kid, they probably wouldn't be able to deck him back.
I mean, maybe they're, like a black belt in Taekwondo or some shit. I don't fucking know. That's kind of the thing, that I've been focusing on lately is I don't fucking know. Like a kind of study of ignorance itself.
Oh yeah.
Because, to connect back to our earlier topic, because you can't really understand something, because meaning is always lost via practical means, via machinic means, or via means of narrative. Um, because you can't understand something, there's always going to be a degree of ignorance, right? And so, is my phone still on?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, I was like, yeah, it was like complete silence. I thought I was just dead.
No, I'm just listening.
So you can't know many things at all, really. Like obviously, as Descartes was pointing out, not my favorite dude, but at least in this aspect, he does. He's right about something. Um, I'm just kidding. Something. Kidding. No, I'm not really. I have my perception of him, but I haven't really read his works. I'm getting off track. But the thing I've been thinking is, if you don't know something, for any number of reasons, but for all intents and purposes here, because you can't know something, again, for any reason, I feel like that excuses you from any material harm that you do. It's a question again of intent versus material outcome. In this instance, you know, you wouldn't yell at a child or fucking break a board over their head for not understanding you know complex calculus theorems, because why would they be familiar with that, right? In the same vein, why is it okay to shame someone, perhaps, for just for an example, why is it okay to shame someone for violating a social convention? Shaming, by the way, can be anything from uh, you know very mildly telling them off to physical assault, spectrum. It's okay to not do it, it's okay to do it to an adult, even if they're, you know, limited in some aspect in comprehending uh, the social aura, but it's not okay to do it to a child. Even if, again, that, adult, whatever, nebulous term that's supposed to be, even if they're not capable or, somehow just don't understand that social convention. It's considered okay. And why exactly? Why do you think? Oh, wow, that's awful.
Well, I think part of that is because of how we treat kids like they have no like agency, right? Isn't that part of that?
It's a part, but I don't think it's
Whereas like with
the
adults,
major
we're
part,
so fucking ready to put people in the box of criminality and in like inherent evil. We're so ready to do that.
because the key factor here is, the proverbial "you should know better."
Right.
There's an aspect here of implied responsibility,
Yeah.
which is which is
Which you're
criminal.
abdicating, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about, throwing adults into the bin of criminality. This is criminal. This is not okay. This is alienating. It's soul crushing. Destroys people's lives. And, even, on the surface, if it's something that's small, if there's only one thing we can absorb from the Joker, it only takes one bad day to break someone.
I don't know if that's the most important message from the Joker, but I
The
see
message I
your
got from
point.
that was the message I got from it, and what I'm advocating for is, I mean, it's been talked about before. You know, I'm advocating either for a society of vulnerability versus a society of strength, or no society at all.
Yeah.
Because what we've rather seen with societies that we've developed is they tend usually to steer towards the path of societies of strength, which is, I mean, I'm sure we're on the same page here, that it's, as the kids say, not hogger. Why did I
It's
say that?
cringe.
Oh God, no.
It's unbased.
It is not cool. I'm 35 years. No, I'm kidding. I've been talking for way too long now.
You
Tell
took
me
us
about what.
you took us on
Yeah,
a ride.
uh, well, did I?
I never really thought of it in that way before.
In what way?
Of like because from your perspective here, we're constantly always incapable of truly coming to understandings. We shouldn't really blame people for their social transgressions because I see it more in the lens of like being against ressentiment and the pious mode of being, of seeing existence and human beings as inherently at fault for what we view as transgressions on society. You know what I mean? That's where I see the theoretical error. You see it in a more linguistic way, I think.
I see it in many ways. Not just linguistic. It goes back to before how I am. I know the word nebulous. I'm, I am very nebulous. I'm hard to define. Um, in an elusive sense almost, but not really.
Yeah.
I don't want to use that word because that makes me sound like I'm enigmatic, which I'm not okay with that either, obviously.
Okay.
But